Hello everyone, this is the Gaming Cat here, and I love video games. And as if that wasn't already obvious.
Getting real for a moment, I've always held the firm belief that art has the potential to impact and change people for the rest of their lives. It's kind of odd to think about in a way, how something like a book that lasts for just 300 pages or a film that lasts just a bit over 2 hours can have the power to affect the core being of someone, but we've seen it happen time and time again. And as the youngest art form in the human world, video games are far from an exception to this. There are many games I've played during my life that have changed me in ways I firmly believe are for the better. I turned 21 just recently, and I can safely say that my life up to this point has been enriched and developed in such important ways by this medium. So much so that I can't imagine what I would have been like had I not found them. That's what I am dedicating this list to, discussing the moments I've had with video games that I believe have impacted me the most and were essential in making me the man I am today. Before we begin, I just want to quickly state something. This is not a list of top 10 favorite games, this is about specific moments in gaming. There may be a few video games on here that also happen to be in my top 10 favorites, but this is looking at personal moments rather than the games as a whole. So with all that out of the way, let's get started. We've all had that one multiplayer game when we were kids. You know, the one we remember fondly as being able to put on when our friends were over and just spend a fun afternoon jamming around with. It's a different pick for everyone, with some pointing to a fighting game while others have a racing game or a platforming game or what else have you. For me, that game was Starfox Assault. I was madly in love with this game from the first time I played the first level in a Best Buy, and my love for it only increased when it became the first console game I ever owned. Practically every day I'd try to make it through a new level and see what would happen next in the story, and this was even before I knew there was a multiplayer mode in this game. When I discovered that though, everything I loved about it grew even bigger. It was quite common for me to spend weekends with my sister and my best friend Connor just hanging around and doing whatever, so it made all the more sense to take a look at Starfox Assault's multiplayer. And let me tell you, cracking it open with them was like opening a treasure chest of new ways to goof off together. Walking around various planets and finding weapons to blow each other up, getting in tanks and blowing each other up, getting in starships and blowing each other up, but most importantly, having fun while blowing each other up. It may seem minor, but this was the first time I ever played video games with other people at the same time. Not only that, but given how ridiculous it all was, it introduced the concept to me as something that didn't have to be competitive or with too much weight behind winning or losing, and it could just be fun. I don't remember a time when any of us ever walked away from this game feeling frustrated or upset that someone else won. All we could think about was how much fun we just had. I have nothing but fond memories of Starfox Assault, especially the multiplayer. It's the game that comes to my mind when people talk about childhood memories of weekends. It may not have done incredibly well critically, but for what it gave me, it's always going to have a special place in my heart. Also, Connor, if you're watching this now, fuck you for every single time you use the shield power-up. Sure, I used it too, but that was a dick power-up. It's definitely no secret in the gaming world that Doom is one of the most influential and important games of all time. Countless people all over the world have played this game over and over again, trying to find all the secrets and techniques this game has to offer. I've played through it quite a few times myself, but even I've got my limits with how many times I can beat a game. After too many, it just starts to feel the same and I want some variety. When I first started my freshman year of college, I wanted to get into the Doom mood again to prep me for the upcoming Doom 4, but at the same time, the idea of playing through it yet again didn't sound very appealing. That is, until I discovered a certain thing called Brutal Doom. This was exactly what I needed at the time. It changed the gameplay in so many cool ways. It was bloody as hell. It offered some of the coolest finishing moves I'd ever seen. It was made by a terrible person, which put me off ever playing it again, but still, it was a really damn cool mod. More importantly than that though, it got me curious. If Brutal Doom did this much with the original game and brought so many new elements to the table, what other kinds of stuff did people do with it? Dying to know, I decided to look at other mods that people had made for it, and the doors opened up even further from there. Before my freshman year of college, I'd never really gotten the chance to play around with mods before. Not only did I often find myself trying to play catch up with so many other games people had said were great and I should try for myself as well, but my pre-adult brain always found downloading and adding mods really confusing and was never sure how to go about it. Figuring out how to use mods, though, really did bring me to a whole new world of opportunity. So many great Doom mods, from the multi-game mashing of Meta Doom to the cowboy aesthetics of High Noon Drifter to the hilarious overkill of Russian, overkill. I was finding a new way to play Doom seemingly every week. The modding fun didn't stop there either. Mugen's nature of being practically a chassis of a video game to be modded in any way people wish turned into a wonderful experience of finding characters from everything I loved and putting them into one big fighting game. Games I had already loved found ways to be improved even more and put some new life into them, such as with Antibirth for The Binding of Isaac, Project Nevada for Fallout New Vegas, all sorts of custom-made campaigns for Starcraft, and even more than that. I was able to take what I loved and find passion projects that made them even better. The world of modding truly is a great one, and I'm absolutely glad I discovered it, even if I did so pretty late in the game. It's offered a world of possibilities and alternatives to me, and given me so much appreciation for the people who do these things. Even if Brutal Doom isn't the greatest mod out there, and was made by a pretty terrible person, I'm really glad it introduced me to all of the wonderful mods people have made. Because at the end of the day, only the minds of the modding community could think of something as unexpected as playing as Squidward in Super Mario Bros.
Oh, you gotta admit, that is pretty neat.
If there's one debate about media that's been a hot button issue for years, it's the one over sexuality. Specifically, female sexuality. People have argued about this debate left and right through just about every medium humanity's created, and not many of them really seem to have a solid answer on it. It's a complex debate because everyone's got a different approach, and quite a few people aren't even sure how they themselves feel about it. Even me. For the longest time when I was a teenager, I was never sure how to think of the fact that I found certain female characters in video games sexually appealing. I saw all these women who were often presented as these badass, tough-as-nails fighters, but also were, well, sexy.
Come on, what are you, 12?
For a while, I had no idea whether this was a good thing or a bad thing. Was I somehow devaluing the strengths of these characters by finding them visually appealing as well? Was I just being part of the problem? Then I played a certain pair of games starring a certain witch, and everything changed. Bayonetta was a character whose sexiness was a big part of who she was. It wasn't just something the designers shoved to the side and almost seemed to expect you to not care about. She was always intended to be seen as a drop-dead knockout. Her looks, her fighting style, her personality— wow, I listed that last? What is wrong with me? All of it was intended to provoke that carnal reaction from the audience. Suddenly, the questions that had been on my mind for so long all made sense to me. Of course I wasn't devaluing her or any other character by finding them sexually attractive. Seeing someone as good looking is just as simple as that. I still greatly enjoyed these characters for qualities beyond their looks as well, and as Bayonetta proved, that sort of stuff could even be an integral part in finding these characters attractive, which is not a bad thing in the slightest. Honestly, I think Bayonetta is an incredibly important character in the medium just for that reason alone. She's proof that finding female characters attractive or sexy doesn't automatically make you shallow or a pervert. You can see them as really good looking and pretty while at the same time respecting them for their actions and character arcs. There's no mutual exclusivity about it. Especially in a society with a lot of cognitive dissonance about sex positivity versus negativity, I honestly think we could use more characters like her. Sure, she's far from the first video game character to be noteworthy for her looks or spicy attitude, but for how she takes those elements further and says something really important about them, I think it's safe to say that this witch definitely put a spell on me. So, confession time. I'm not much of a crier. That's not just me trying to sound tough, I legitimately do not cry very easily. There have been exceptions to this, certainly, but for the most part, even though I can get emotional over certain stories, getting to the point of physical crying is an extreme rarity for me. Video games especially, I often felt bad for not crying during moments that everyone else had said they bawled their eyes out at, but I just kept my same stoic face on during. The ending of Super Paper Mario? Got emotional but didn't cry. Asriel regaining his sanity in Undertale? Got emotional but didn't cry. The epilogue of Legacy of the Void? Got emotional but still didn't cry. So what game finally did it? What game finally broke me down enough to get me to actually physically cry? Well, what if I told you it was the same game where Adolf Hitler pisses himself right after shooting a young Ronald Reagan in the face? You'd probably believe me about as much if I said that a Studio Trigger show got me emotional. But still, the modern Wolfenstein games are surprisingly really heavy. Even though they've got tons of ridiculous action and balls to the wall blood and gore, they still find ways to have heartfelt moments and get you genuinely invested in what's going on. And nowhere was it more effective than with the midway point of Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. Oh yeah, big spoilers here by the way. After setting off the nuke in Roswell, Blazkowicz goes back to his old childhood home in Texas to find an engagement ring he wants to give Anya. During this point, we see more flashbacks into his childhood and how his abusive father was an absolute bastard to him. It's mixed with nice scenes of him hanging out with a childhood friend, but it's even more bittersweet when we realize how badly it's going to end. And wouldn't you know it, once Blazko finds the ring, he comes face to face with his father again after God knows how long.
Ain't nothing you can offer to make up for what you done to us. I think of my father, I see a fuck you and a fist flying in my face.
When'd you ever do right by me?
It's clear as day in this scene that this heartless monster hasn't changed a bit, culminating in the revelation that he turned over Blazko's mom to the Nazis because she was a Jew, all so he could get more money out of it.
What do you mean they took her?
They rounded up all the Jews and the coloreds and the queers. This is a white man's world now. White man's got to keep it Christian.
You sold her out.
So what?
Enraged, Blazko finally stands up to his abusive father and kills him, right before the Nazis manage to find him. Though he tries to escape, it ends in failure, and what follows is definitely the lowest point Blazko has been through in these games. He's imprisoned by the Nazis, they turn his capture into a public event, Super Spesh is killed in an attempt to rescue him, and he is put on trial where he receives the death penalty. That is, until he breaks free and starts killing every last Nazi in the room. When the killing stops for a moment, he finds a door to another room and opens it to see...
Mama. I thought I lost you, Mom.
And this is where the game finally broke me. Not only seeing Blazko reunited with his mom again after so much hardship, but seeing him get emotional in a way that I had never seen before from a character like him, it was just too much. This poor man has been through all kinds of pain, seen friends and family die left and right, watched the world he loved become a living nightmare, but through it all he stayed bold and determined. Until now, when he's finally in the arms of a mother he thought to be dead, and admits that he's scared. This man, this brutal, Nazi-slaughtering beast of a man, admits that he's scared. He straight up says that he's tired of the fighting and just wants to see the children that he and Anya were expecting, knowing that he may never get the chance to.
I'm having twins, Mama. They're not born yet. I want to see them. I wanted you to see them.
This moment was what finally got me to cry at a video game. It was such a powerful moment, complete and undeniable proof that video games are an art form that can move even the most straight-faced people. Without a doubt, one of the most important scenes I've witnessed in a game. Until it turns out that it was all a dream and all the fighting you just did in one of the hardest levels in the game was all for nothing. Come the fuck off! There's something to be said about the merits of crossover fighting games. Not only do they provide excellent fan service for people who are fans of the source material, but they can even be wonderful introductions for those who aren't familiar with any of these characters but want to learn more about them. I'm willing to bet that I'm far from the only one who is like that with Super Smash Bros. Melee. I still remember the days during my elementary school years in Maryland when my old friend group would all gather together and sit around the TV as we played Melee. I didn't know who most of these characters were at the time, but the chaotic fighting and unique movesets drew me in right from the start. Soon enough, I was playing through Classic and Adventure mode to try to beat each one with all the characters, and before too long, I found myself wanting to know more about Nintendo's lineup. And as I collected trophies that gave details on all the lore and listened to my friends talk about which characters they liked the best, I found myself getting more and more into Smash Bros. Than I expected I would. Melee became something of a staple of my friend group in Maryland. Whenever one of us was hanging out with the other, we'd always make sure to get in at least a few rounds of Smash. It was just a childhood ritual that nothing could break. Then one day, things changed. My parents told my sister and I that my dad had been laid off from his former job and we'd have to move away to another state closer to where his new job was. We had 6 more months in the only place I'd ever known all my life, and then that was it. Everyone was gone. Moving to this new state was a very scary time for me. I didn't know anyone, wasn't familiar with any of the places, and on top of that was in a middle school I'd never seen before. I was wondering if my entire life as I knew it had been changed forever and nothing would ever be the same again. I just wasn't sure how to deal with any of it. Until one day, when I received a sign that I had needed. I had just discovered Nintendo's website and was poking around on it a little, and scrolling down I happened to see the Super Smash Bros. Title. But it wasn't just the title or Melee, it said Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Whatever could this be? I clicked and found myself facing what was called the Super Smash Bros. Dojo. And as I read through it, I learned exactly what Brawl was, an entirely new Smash Bros. Game. The realization perplexed and excited me from the very moment I had it. A new Smash Bros. Game so suddenly? Was such a thing even possible? But as I read on, the reality of it gained purchase in my mind. There was a new Smash Bros. Game on the way, an entirely new version of the game that had brought me so much joy back in Maryland. For the next several months as it was being developed, all I could think about was Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Every day I would check the website, seeing if new information or videos had been posted. This game couldn't come out soon enough, man. I remember my heart just falling every time it was delayed. It was more than just an exciting new game to me. It was a sign that I didn't need to lose hope. It was a time when I thought for sure that everything in my life had been changed and there was nothing familiar to take comfort in anymore, and the Smash Bros. Dojo proved me wrong. My life didn't have to be reset after all. Though I'd still be unavoidably moving forward into new territory, there were still familiar things I loved that would follow me. This is the biggest reason why Super Smash Bros. Is such an important series to me, because it's proof that no matter where I am in life, the things and characters I love will still be with me. The future builds upon the past, driving us forward and allowing us to embrace the new with the help of the old. Even if I didn't know it at the time, that was what made me fall so madly in love with Brawl. I can remember that every day I told someone about it while waiting for release day to come, I'd always say word for word.
This is the most exciting thing to ever happen in the history of history.
Because to me back then, it really was. And with Super Smash Bros. Ultimate on the way, it looks like history is about to get a bit more exciting. Mascot games seem to be a bit of a dead art in this day and age. You don't really hear about too many people trying to make games centered around characters who are supposed to be seen in a definitive, instantly recognizable way akin to a cartoon character, with just a few exceptions. We used to get those all the time years ago, with characters like Sonic, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, and a whole variety of others. But who knows, perhaps the reason we just aren't seeing as much anymore is because people just realized a hard truth, that no matter how much you try, there's just no dethroning the king of them all. If there's one word I'd use to describe the Mario Brothers, it's iconic. Mario and Luigi have had such a tight and integral history to video games that they honestly are inseparable from the medium. Their library has spanned dozens, even hundreds of games. They've got a whole bevy of real-world merchandise. They've crossed over into practically every video game genre out there, and I've done my damnness to witness every moment of it. Mario was my Superman when I was a kid. He was the icon whose adventures I couldn't get enough of. I wanted to play every Mario game, learn everything about the Mario universe, just do everything I could to get more Mario. I know this sounds like the beginning of a copy pasta, but the Mario Brothers really were important to me as a kid. Their adventures brought me a sense of fun and joy that I always looked forward to. I was always left guessing what their next romp would be, never certain what kind of crazy adventure their games would take them. The passion I have for the Mario series as an adult is certainly nowhere near as strong as it was when I was a kid, but I'm still grateful towards these games for all the fun memories they gave me. Jumping into paintings in Super Mario 64, battling aliens in Mario and Luigi Partners in Time, saving all worlds from obliteration in Super Paper Mario, the list just goes on and on. Mario really is to video games what someone like Mickey Mouse is to cartoons or King Arthur is to old myths. The fun adventures the brothers gave me injected excitement and whimsy in my day-to-day life. Some games have been better than others, sure, but as long as there's still a fire burning in the engine, I think the Mario games are going to keep coming for a long, long time. It's hard to believe now, but shooting games went through quite the dark age back in the early 2010s. The success of games like Call of Duty and Battlefield may have been fortunate back when they were fresh and interesting, but they also had the nasty side effect of being the model shooter for nearly every other one to rip off. Rather than seeing tons of shooters with variety in both gameplay and presentation like we do nowadays or in the Doom clone era of shooters, every FPS game was trying to be a military shooter like Call of Duty. A few of them managed to do something unique, but for the most part, they were all pretty bland and uninteresting. However, one particular shooter game came along one day that not only managed to do something different, but even did so in a way that turned the entire genre of military shooters and even military-themed entertainment in general, or militainment, on its head. That game was Spec Ops The Line. After 6 years of this game being out, it's kind of hard to find anything new to say about it. Between shows like Zero Punctuation, Extra Credits, and Rabid Luigi, who have all done excellent jobs of dissecting this game and talking about what makes it such a harrowing journey and probably the best example of meta-narrative in a video game before Undertale, there's not much about the game itself that I can really bring to the table. But as for how it affected me personally, that's definitely a new thing I can talk about. You see, turning the military and the soldier-hero fantasies people have about it into everyday entertainment has been a big part of American culture for a long time now. Not just in video games like Call of Duty, but in films, TV shows, books, and what else have you. And for a while when I was a kid, and especially a teenager, I ate that sort of stuff up all the time. This, I thought, was what being a true patriot was. Putting your life on the line for your country and fighting with every part of your being in the military. Truly, there was nothing more honorable than that, and I was planning for the longest time to join the military once I got right out of high school. I couldn't wait to live out the sorts of heroism and valor that I had witnessed in all the military films and video games. Then in 2014, I played Spec Ops The Line, and I felt everything in my head shatter. This was an incredibly haunting game to me, not just because of its story and subject matter, but because it honestly painted a picture of what the path I was on would lead me to. And it wasn't pretty in any sense of the word. The tragedy of Captain Walker comes not from any lack of skill or strength, but from his gross misunderstanding of what the military is. The life of a soldier is not one of adventure or heroics. It's a job, a hard, dirty, bloody job that you either take seriously and do right, or you become responsible for countless calamities. Walker's failure to understand his role as a soldier and try to be some idealistic hero in spite of this was a terrifying wake-up call for me. It was a message that unless I grew out of the ridiculousness of militainment and the rose tinting they put on reality, I'd end up getting myself into something that no exercise regimen could possibly prepare me for. And I should say that I of course have nothing but the highest amount of respect for the men and women who actually do serve in the military. They've chosen to put their lives on the line for literally all of you watching this, and they do so while often walking away underappreciated and undercompensated. But the way the entertainment industry chooses to shine some romantic light on everything they do and practically make it a myth is honestly dangerous. Spec Ops The Line was a game that saw right through the act and showed it for what it really was. It broke an illusion that I was glad to be rid of. I'm currently in my senior year of majoring in film production at my college, and I may very well have never gotten here without what Spec Ops The Line taught me. For that reason alone, I strongly believe that Spec Ops The Line deserves every bit of recognition and praise that it has gotten. So, you all know about Doki Doki Literature Club, right? Oh, who am I kidding? You're on the internet. Of course you know about this game. Well, just to recap, DDLC was a visual novel / dating simulator that essentially set out to do for its genre what Spec Ops The Line did for military shooters. Which is to say, put the negative elements in a much different light and show how muddled the genre had become as a result of those flaws. And while it did do an excellent job with that, it also kinda showed my friends and I the potential appeal that visual novels could hold as well. So, more eager to explore the genuine good that they had, I thought back to the praise that Josh Scorcher had given a certain VN in one of his countdowns, and upon hearing that it had some really well-written and humanizing themes of disability in it, I decided to take a look. And thus, my journey with Kadowa Shoujo began. I had no idea what to expect when I first started reading it, but I definitely didn't expect to get into it as fast and hard as I did. The writing was solid, the characters were well designed and interesting, the story was surprisingly captivating, and the way it portrayed disabled people was honestly some of the best that I've ever seen across all media. It didn't show them as useless inferior freaks, nor did it show them as perfect victimized angels, it just showed them as people. Complex people with entire systems of personalities and emotions that drew me in so much that honestly I even forgot they were disabled half the time. The first route I played through was Hanako's, and it was the first time in a while that a story had grabbed me as hard as this did. It flowed so smoothly from being sad to heartwarming to heartbreaking again. I didn't want to put this story down, man. I felt so much for Hanako and what she was struggling with, and just wanted to see her and her friends get better and move forward. So it was a really captivating story with a lot of heartfelt moments. That's absolutely great, but what about it made it stand out in my mind so much? What made it worthy of being number 3 on my list of video game moments that I feel were most important in making me the person I am today?
Well, truth be told, Kadowa Shoujo is more than just a visual novel to me, because it came to me at a very, very dark point in my life. And for the record, this part of the video is not scripted, because what I have to say, I feel, cannot and should not come from something pre-prepared. It can only come from the heart. A few months before I read through Kadowa Shoujo, I had gotten out of an abusive relationship. It was one that was both emotionally and, regrettably, sexually abusive. And during that time of my life, I was in a really rough spot mentally. I was learning more and more just how awful it had been, and the fear and shock that it put me in was pretty big. Like, I was constantly worried about what was real and what wasn't, whether or not I deserved any of it, and whether or not, like, it was actually there just me being whiny, or, you know, I was also worried if I ended up in this once, because I had previously thought, this could never happen to me, this will never happen to me, but it had happened. I did end up in an abusive relationship, and I was scared that it might happen again, or if I was just doomed to fall in something like that forever. And reading through Hanako's route in Kadowa Shoujo was exactly the reassurance I needed. It was such a breath of fresh air from the state that I was in. Like I said, I didn't really know what to expect going in, but I did not expect to nearly feel this level of connection and compassion with this character in this visual novel. Because talking with Hanako honestly did bring back those feelings of understanding, love, and trust. And those feelings honestly did do a world of good for me. It brought me back up in so many ways that I honestly can't even really put into words. All I can do is just try to explain on some level how much it helped me. Hanako's route in Kadowa Shoujo was the biggest point of healing that I had in my recovery, because it helped me understand that I didn't have to end up in something like that all over again. I was someone who was deserving of love and could achieve love. Without Kadowa Shoujo and without Hanako, I don't know how my recovery would have gone. It was a rocky road through and through, and it did not go away very easily. Reading through Kadowa Shoujo definitely wasn't the end-all of my recovery. There was still some trouble I had, but Kadowa Shoujo was a huge step for me. It was a big step in learning to feel comfortable with myself again, to feel comfortable with the idea of love again. It helped me so much in getting back to that place where I felt like that sort of relationship could be healthy and happy for a person. Without Kadowa Shoujo, I feel like it would have taken a lot longer for me to get there. And I don't know how much longer it would have taken, maybe months more, maybe years more. I don't know, but I'm very, very glad to be in the timeline where I discovered Kadowa Shoujo, and I read through Hanako's route, and I felt all those emotions and got to this better place. For that reason, Kadowa Shoujo deserves this spot on my list of most important gaming moments, for what it did for me, and for what it represents. Hope. And, of course, since I know you're all expecting it, I'll say it for the fans. Hanako Ikezawa is my waifu for laifu. Enjoy, you're not gonna hear something like that ever again.
Starfreaking-Craft. I cannot state enough how important this series is to me. You've seen it every time I've made another video. You've seen it in many of the shirts I've worn on this channel, and if you know me personally, you've probably heard me bring it up at least once and gotten really annoyed with me. Again, can I really say much about these games that I haven't already said before? Well, I suppose I should go into a bit more detail. I can still remember back when I was a really young kid and pretty new to the world, when all I knew about video games or even computers in general was limited to the Reader Rabbit games and learning what the different flags of the world looked like. At the age of 4 or 5, I was still getting used to the very concept of my own existence and didn't think much about the computer I saw my parents use or sometimes used myself for an educational game. But when I saw my dad at the computer using a program I'd never seen anything like before, my attention was immediately grabbed. What was I looking at? What were these things he was clicking on and moving around? Were they beasts? Monsters? Giant flying crabs? Even before I understood this game, watching my dad play it was hypnotic. I was in love with it long before I started playing it, and when I got the chance to do so, it was love at first sight. Starcraft was the first video game I ever really got into, and it, along with Diablo and Battlezone, practically opened the door for me into the world of video games. They were the first to ever show me how this medium could capture someone's attention, pulling them in just as strongly as any other art form could. First with its unique presentation, then its gameplay, then its utterly captivating universe and characters. StarCraft was the first of many things in video games for me, and as such, the wait for StarCraft 2 was one of the most anticipation-building, not to mention patience testing, times of my life. When it finally released, though, everything about it blew me away. The graphics, the gameplay, the world and characters, everything about it took what made me fall in love with the original so much and jacked it up by 10. Following the 5-year journey from Wings of Liberty to Legacy of the Void was an unforgettable experience. There were so many moments it gave me that I'll never forget. Learning how to defend against a Zerg rush, sending carriers to tear apart the enemy, the horror of the Queen of Blades, the despicableness of Arcturus Mengsk, the tragic sacrifices of Zeratul, and of course, the unwavering manliness and badassery of my all-time favorite character, James Raynor. StarCraft was more than just a game to me. It was a journey I went on for many years of my life. From watching my dad as a tyke to playing games myself, from learning about the universe to fantasizing about being a Terran commander, even extending to Jim Raynor's devotion to good and heroism even when the rest of the universe was beating him down, making him my childhood hero, the StarCraft franchise is something that I could never imagine growing up without. For all these reasons, and even many more, StarCraft's legacy will always be worth preserving, even as time goes on and more games are released. Chris Metzen, James Finney, Dustin Browder, and so many others who made these games what they are, thank you for all the memories you have given me and so many others. So I know what you're all thinking. What could possibly win out against StarCraft, the series that I have praised to high heaven ever since my channel first began? Well, to be honest, this wasn't an easy decision. I went back and forth with myself pretty hard over whether this one or the StarCraft franchise would be number 1 on this list. They both had plenty of merits that made putting either on any lower spot feel like a disservice to them, but ultimately, this is the final decision I've come to. The number 1 most important moment I've experienced in my life of gaming is playing through Undertale.
I'm sure you're all wondering the same thing. How could this small little indie game possibly rank over StarCraft on this list? Well, my choice for placing it higher than StarCraft came down to one simple factor. StarCraft had over 15 years and multiple games to achieve that special place in my heart. Undertale managed to become this important to me with only 10 hours of one game.
In retrospect, it shouldn't have worked. This small little game just came right out of nowhere in my life and only lasted for a short while. Yet in that time, it managed to draw me in and pull at my heartstrings in ways that I never would have expected. The characters, the humor, the world, the unique gameplay, all of it was stuff that I never would have expected, nor did I know that I had always wanted. I've never before seen a game that made me fall in love with its story and characters as fast as Undertale has. Not a single one of them is poorly written or forgettable, and every single one of them has at least a few moments that really stick with you. But it's more than just that too. As I explained in my Brutal Doom playthrough, the story and themes of Undertale were ones that also spoke to me on a personal level. Being someone who has lived all my life with Asperger's syndrome, a part of me has always felt like an outsider in another foreign world. A place where the environments and people look so different on a surface level that it would be easy to write it all off at first. But when you dig further and learn more about them and the world that surrounds you, you find out that it isn't so bad after all. Places that once looked odd and alienating become just like home, and the people who once seemed so different and odd end up becoming your best friends. People who you come to love and trust and understand with every part of your being. The journey of Undertale, to me, felt like a reflection of the journey I had taken in life, going from feeling lost and isolated to being surrounded by people who love me. Some moments got hard or frustrating and overwhelmed me at times, but throughout it all, I stayed determined. I kept moving forward as things got better for me and made sure I didn't lose sight of who I wanted to be. And seeing that journey represented in Undertale made me feel even more like I really was leading my life in the right direction. With the people I care about by my side and the lessons I've learned guiding me, I feel proud of myself for making it this far, and I can't wait to make it even further.
Video games really are an important art form. No matter who you are, where you come from, if you're young or old, they have the power to change all of us for the better. That is why the memories and moments video games have given us are worth keeping forever. I'm the Gaming Cat, and here's to even more fun and even more growth. Thank you all for over 5 wonderful years.